Okay. Good morning, everyone. I want to call the meeting of the California Housing Finance Agency Board of Directors to order. And we'll start with the roll call, please, Pam.
Ms. Avila Farias. Mr. Schaefer for Mr. Chung.
Here.
Ms. Gallagher.
Here.
Ms. Gunn.
Here.
Mr. Gunning.
Here.
Mr. Hunter.
Here.
Ms. Johnson Hall.
Here.
Mr. Metcalf.
Here.
Mr. Prince.
Here.
Mr. Williams
Here.
for Ms. Podesta.
Here.
Ms. Sotelo. Mr. Russell.
Present.
Ms. Ortega.
Here.
Mr. Alex. Ms. Boatman Patterson.
Here.
And Ms. Falk.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. So we'll move to item number 2, which is approval of the minutes of the July 13th, 2016 Board of Directors meeting. I believe we didn't have a quorum of those present at the last meeting to vote for this, so
Move approval.
thank you. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. So will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Schaefer.
Yes.
Ms. Gallagher. Ms. Gunn for Dr. Imbasiani.
Yes.
Mr. Gunning.
Yes.
Mr. Hunter.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson Hall.
Abstain.
Mr. Metcalf.
Yes.
Mr. Prince.
Abstain, since I wasn't, you're talking about July 13th?
July 13.
So I have to abstain?
Mr. Williams.
Do you have a list of who was actually at that board meeting? I can't remember if I was at that one or
I
not.
know, I was looking at that.
It's right here. No,
Agenda item
Catherine was
roll
here.
call.
Ms. Oheku was here for that one.
Oh, okay, so abstain. Sorry.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Ms. Falk.
Aye.
The motion is passed.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, which is approval of the minutes of the September 14th, 2016 Board of Directors meeting. Motion,
I'll move to approve.
thank you. Second,
I'll second it.
thank you, Mr. Gunning. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Schaefer.
Yes.
Ms. Gallagher.
Yes.
Ms. Gunn.
Yes.
Mr. Gunning.
Yes.
Mr. Hunter.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson Hall.
Abstain.
Mr. Metcalf.
Abstain.
Mr. Prince.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Russell.
Abstain.
Ms. Falk.
Abstain.
The motion passes for the September 14th minutes.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask our Executive Director for any comments.
Very few. I just wanted to report that we did attend the annual conference, National Council State Housing Agency in September, and that was done in conjunction with the NCSHA board and the board training. We had 4 board members attend, Mr. Russell, Ms. Johnson Hall, Mr. Prince, and Ms. Gunning. And we'd like to congratulate Ms. Johnson Hall, who was actually ran and appointed. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Gunn. I've married her off to Michael.
No, we're
sorry.
here on the board.
Ms. Gunn Your husband would probably be very upset with that. But we do want to congratulate Ms. Tina Johnson Hall, who was elected to the Board of Directors for the National Council State Housing Agency Board. So congratulations on that.
It was a close vote, too.
Okay, well, now we'll move to item number 5, which is the report of the Audit Committee. And Mr. Gunning?
All right, thank you, Madam Chairman. Members of the board, the Audit Committee met this morning prior to this meeting. A couple highlights from that. Mostly, I think all of us may have received Tia's letter dated October 13th. Just a great letter, Tia. Thank you for doing that, because I think it highlights to us and the rest of the group the successes of the agency, which I'll use to sort of tee up some of the similar successes we saw in the audit report. Credit rating upgraded 10 times. I'm really pleased about the new loan from the Federal Home Loan Bank. I think that presents unique opportunities and talks about the financial stability of the agency. One of the biggest problems we've had around here was the whole derivatives and liquidity program. Being able to get rid of that and the loan from the 4 banks, I think really speaks about the financial stability of the agency. That line of credit, thankful to the Obama administration for helping us, but it sure is nice to pay that off. I was giving Di a little grief here because one of the biggest things we had was Keep Your Home California program, and Di took a lot of heat. I remember when protesters, T, I think it was your first meeting, and they were like, give us the money. And I think Di's resilient. What do we want? We don't want that now. But her resiliency and stewardship of that program makes it the best program in the country. So Di, kudos, because I know I was beating you up a little bit too. And finally, our single-family program, Cal Plus, which launched last year, is exceeding expectations, and it's just great to be back in the single-family business, particularly to exceed some of our lending goals there. In terms of the audit, delinquencies are down. We had double-digit. We're down to 6.6% versus 7.3% last year, so that number continues to improve. The agency continues to manage the bond indebtedness, reducing its bonded indebtedness, which again helps us save money over the long haul. It's a good point. Now, operating income is down. We're down to $77 million from $88.3 million last year, but I think as we talked about the credit ratings going up, the financial strength is strong overall. And then, of course, the mortgage flex suit got settled, so that's a good thing there. And Tia, thank you for your leadership on that. So Madam Chairman, while revenue's down, strength is good, agency's good. I'd entertain any questions, but that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Gunning. Are there any questions from board members? We want to congratulate Ms. Boatman-Pedersen and the agency for having such a big success.
Madam Chairman,
I'm sorry, I do want to add one last comment. Nancy Jones has been our auditor for the past 5 years, and she's pitch hitting for Mandy Jones, who will be stepping in, but we certainly want to recognize Nancy's help and education to me, because she's certainly spent a lot of time helping me get smarter, and so I want to commend Nancy and recognize you for the great work you've done, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll move now to item number 6, which is an informational workshop discussing the governance role and responsibility of the board. Some of you have heard this before, but we have a number of new board members, so we're doing it again. So I want to call on Ms. Jones.
There we go. Now it's on. Perfect. All right. So again, I am Nancy Jones. I'm not sure where the presentation just went to. I'm not number 8. Thank you. Whew. Tech support. I so appreciate that. So anyway, what I'm going to do with you right now is hopefully give you a high-level overview of the governance responsibilities that you have. And so this is training that we did a couple years ago, but since we have new members, I think it's probably useful to do it again. Because some of you might be new, we want you to understand what your fiduciary duty is, and really specifically how that relates to the California Housing Finance Agency. And within the fiduciary duties, we're talking about this is weird, sorry. We're talking about the duty of care, the duty of loyalty, and the duty of obedience. So for duty of care, that means that you have responsibilities. You need to act like an ordinary, prudent person in carrying out those responsibilities like any other person would do in like circumstances. The loyalty is that you need to be faithful for the pursuits of the organization. So rather than represent yourself, you are representing the agency, and you have a responsibility to bring forward their best interests. And the duty of obedience is to act with fidelity in accordance with the organization's mission, to try to do everything you can to bring the mission forward. So when we talk about duty of care, that means that you need to attend the meetings and participate in those meetings. Sometimes there's some homework that needs to be done ahead of time. If you're on a committee, then you need to commit to being on that committee, attending those meetings, making sure that you bring forward the results that you need to bring to the full board. And then the board needs to actually pay attention to what the committees are recommending, make sure that makes sense to them, ask any questions that come up for them so that they can feel comfortable in accepting the work of committees, and then participate in those board decisions and board actions. So if you're here, then you need to participate in the process. One of the things that you need to be able to do is to know the books and records of the organization. When we went over the audit this morning, I didn't really present the financial information that was in your financial statements, because those are your financial statements. You need to be familiar with those and what they mean. So if you have questions, always reach out. But there should be at least one expert on the panel that could provide insight for you if you have questions on the books and records. Of course, you can ask management, you can ask your auditors. But if there's information in those financial statements that you're unsure of, then you need to be able to reach forward and get responses and answers. And then one of the things then that you're able to do once you know the books and records is to actually protect the assets of the organization so that they can be used in furtherance of the mission, because that is the key thing that you're doing. You're trying to further the mission of the organization, and in order to do that, you have to be able to know what you're looking at to safeguard those assets. Okay, so with the duty of loyalty, you need to follow all the written policies on conflicts of interest. So if something says that you shouldn't do it, don't do it, all right? For example, you've got a rule about gifts, so follow that rule about gifts. You're not allowed to receive certain amounts of gifts. Make sure that you know what that is and follow through on it. You can't use the corporate opportunities to divert it to businesses that you know or that would provide you a benefit. And you need to also make sure that you follow the Internal Revenues Code on self-dealing. Make sure that you're not doing any self-dealing. And then if you know that someone is subject to the jurisdiction of the agency, certainly you don't take gifts from them. Now, one place where this actually comes back to me, not taking gifts, Lori will never allow me to buy her so much as a cup of coffee, which is very frustrating, because we meet and we talk about things, and we talk about the audit, and we talk about what's going on with the agency and anything that's new. And so to not even allow me to buy her a cup of coffee seems a little bit extreme, but she's following what she feels is her duty of loyalty and not having any self-dealing. So, all right, but your role is governance. Lori's role and Don's role and Tia's role is management of the agency. So governance has the ultimate responsibility for moving the agency forward in accordance with its missions. But the management is actually going to do all of the day-to-day decision-making that carries that out, that carries out the desires of governance. And then the board is responsible for the overall supervision and control of the operations to make sure that those are going in accordance with what you're planning and what you desire to have happen. So, the purpose of the governing board is to provide the organizational oversight and maintain the accountability. So when we talk about transparency and accountability, you hear that a lot. That's really something that you're looking for. Are we being transparent with our constituents? Do they know what's happening? Are we bringing forward that information? You want to be transparent. Then also you have an accountability to the public that is entrusting you with your role here for California Housing. And so you have to ensure the future, the mission, the vision, and the goals. And then that includes that you have to ensure that this agency is effectively governed, ask the appropriate questions, and hold management accountable. Additional things are that you have an Open Meetings Act so that you cannot have meetings without public notice. I believe it's 10 days. And then you have a duty of disclosure of any conflicts of interest. You should only be voting on the matters that are in the notification and on the agenda. And you cannot have a majority of your group communicating with each other except in an open meeting. For example, I was going to go to dinner with members of the audit committee, but not everybody could make it, and we hadn't had an open meeting notice, and so we weren't actually allowed to do that and didn't actually carry through with that. But in all honesty, I think it was Victor that said, hey, you can't do that. So thank you very much, Victor, for doing that for us. And then, in addition, closed sessions are limited. They have to be authorized by law and on the agenda. And then if there is an emergency, then certainly you can meet without 10 days notice. But typically there aren't a lot of emergencies. So the agency has a disclosure process, which you should be familiar with. If no one has brought that to you to say, here's what your disclosures are for this year, be sure and ask, because you need to disclose any interest that you have that could be in conflict with the agency. And your reporting obligation is if you knew it or if you should have known it. So if you are unsure, then ask. Okay, for the financial reporting, there are 3 groups that work together to ensure that the financial reporting is appropriate: the governing body, financial management, and the independent auditors. The least of those is the independent auditors. We're that final check. We audit those statements, but the statements themselves are developed and belong to management, and you are oversight of that process. So you look at internal controls. You need to know if there were frauds, if there were misstatements of the financial information, and that all falls back to your duty of being aware of how the financial statements fit together and knowing the books and records. And then if something comes to your attention, then you should be responsible for following up on that. Okay, you have 2 advisory committees, the Audit Committee and the Executive Evaluation Committee. And I met this morning with the Audit Committee, and you've heard from them this morning. The role of that Audit Committee is that they make the recommendations for the selection and retention of the auditors. They review the audit findings, and then they report that back to the board. Now, within government finance, there's a Government Finance Officers Association. If you want to go to that website, they have best practices for boards, and I highly encourage you to look at that. They have a couple of white papers out there that might be beneficial for you, but I'm not going to go through what they cover. This is a little bit too high level for that. And then on your duties are the independent review and oversight of the financial reporting process. You need to have policies for receipt, retention, and treatment of complaints regarding accounting, internal control, and auditing matters. So if someone comes forward to you to bring a concern, you have to have a process in place in order to address that concern. And then in order to address all concerns brought forward to you in a consistent manner. And then that way you will keep the agency out of trouble, because if those policies aren't in place and followed consistently, then you can create additional strife for the agency. So it's very important that you do that. And then annually, you're going to present to the board the written report of how you discharged your duties and met your responsibilities. And that's it. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
First of all, thank you so much for your presentation. It was actually very interesting, but also and important. But also, when we went to the board training, this was actually one of the areas that they highlighted, and I was very proud to say out loud that I actually knew that we had a process in place. So thank you for revisiting this with us. The question that I have for you is, as it relates to the economic interest, I'm still not totally clear on procedurally how you translate the questions. Does that go through the board chair? Does that go through Victor? Exactly how do we process questions when we have them?
So that is actually a policy question. Mm-hmm. So Victor, take it away.
Okay.
The board, if they have any concerns about any interests that they might have that might affect their economic interests, then they have a conversation with me, and we talk it through.
All right, thank you.
And then if there's a disclosure obligation, then of course it's disclosed to the board, and that member recuses themselves from participating.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll just say finally that, of course, part of that is, and I'll redistribute to each of you our economic interest statement, which lists the areas that are reportable for our agency. They have to do with financial institutions, banking institutions, other developers, that sort of thing. We'll give you a list. It's a discrete list of disclosures that you have to disclose on your Form 700.
Oh, thank you.
Are there other questions? No? Okay.
Thank you so
Thank you
much. I
very much.
appreciate your attention and your concern with having the appropriate training. It's very heartening for your auditors.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. So we'll now move on to item number 7, which is discussion, recommendation, and possible action regarding the final loan commitment for the Hacienda del Norte apartments. And we have Mr. Sertich and Ms. Vakili.
Hi. Thank you for your patience, Board. Before we get started on the specific project, I wanted to update you on a couple of changes that we have had to our staffing in the multifamily lending area. Our chief, Jim Morgan, has left the agency to take a position at another state agency. So that is why I am here today with Ruth instead of Jim. So he will be missed, and we are very sad to see him go. Last week was his first week at his new job, which is a very good job to still be working on development, working with the Department of Developmental Services to help develop their centers, their regional centers, into smaller group homes for the developmentally disabled. So we will miss him, but I will let Ruth take the lead on the project we have here. which is Hacienda del Norte, a project in Paso Robles. See if I can find this. Do you have the PowerPoint? I have the PowerPoint. Oh, okay. Just didn't get it there. We'll just walk through it. All right, the PowerPoint is in front of you, so we will walk through it. I apologize that we don't have it on the slide. But Ruth will walk through the project. If you have any questions, please let us know.
Good morning. It's unfortunate we don't have pictures. This is a very nice project in Paso Robles. I always wonder, is it Paso Robles?
We have a handout.
Good. Okay, so you have the pictures. And I did go out to the site. It is a really lovely site, about 2 blocks from downtown Paso Robles. Very walkable, access to all the amenities. And first of all, can you all hear me well enough? Okay. It's a 9% tax credit project that we're bringing to you today. It's new to our portfolio. It's a 3-story project with 1 elevator. It has 20 studio, 24 one-bedroom units on 1 acre, and a single-story community room, primarily occupied by senior and disabled tenants. And the location for these residents couldn't be better. The property was built in 1976, and it does need substantial rehab at this point. Especially in the areas of energy efficiency and water efficiency. The exteriors also will be upgraded, new windows, new roofs, exterior paint, upgrading the common room, and increasing the usability of the common room. The budget for rehab is $46,877 a unit. So this will provide substantial upgrades. Unit upgrades will include full ADA improvements for 5 accessible units, the energy efficient upgrades for appliances, kitchen and bath countertops, and interior painting, plumbing upgrades, flooring replacement as needed. The units are actually have been kept in pretty good condition, but at this point, the property is definitely needing upgrades. The ceiling fans will be added. Replacement of HVAC systems will improve the heating and cooling, and overall livability will be increased. The kind of rehab that's being done will require only relocation out of the unit on a daily basis. The work will be done and completed in one day. Tenants can either, be out of the project, or there's going to be a replacement unit that will be available for them to stay during the day, and then they come back to their unit at night. For the ADA units, that will require tenants to be out of their unit for 2 days, and they will be given accommodations in a local hotel and all their expenses paid for. The borrower for the project is TCD Hacienda del Norte, LP, and that is Triton Community Development, who is the same developer as the project that I brought to you last board in September on the Vista Hidden Valley project. Also, Triton has closed a project with us recently, Virginia Terrace, which was also a rehab project, which was completed in budget and on time. So we're excited to come back with another project with Triton Development. The team of the architect is Musser Architects, and Day Builders is the contractor, both of which have substantial experience in rehab and multifamily. And the property manager is MBS Property Management, which has over 40 years of management experience in affordable housing, and is also a property manager for several projects in our portfolio. We're requesting a loan of $6 million for the acquisition rehab period of 12 months, and the underwriting interest rate is estimated to be 3%, and that currently with interest rates provides a 41 basis point cushion. Upon conversion, we will convert the loan to a $1.5 million permanent loan for a term of 40 years, and I've underwritten it at 4.15%, which is currently about 29 basis point cushion. CalHFA will be restricting 20% of the units at 50% AMI, and in addition, as a result of the earned surplus sources of funds, we will also restrict 51% of the units at 120% AMI. Through the benefit of the tax credit program, the project will be taken from market to deeply affordable with rents at 30 to 60% rents, and 35% of the units will be restricted to 45% or below. I'm sorry, I just totally blew right past my carefully structured presentation, and the permanent loan is $4 million, not $1.5 million. I'm sure the developer just had palpitations about that. So I know I would. But the rest of it is the same. So thank you for pointing that out, Tony. I would have just kept going. As I said a little bit earlier, the project has received an award of 9% tax credits, which is expected to generate about $4.7 million. And this project is currently, and has been for some time, a Section 8 project on 43 of the units. We're underwriting to current Section 8 rents, and that results in a 1.15 debt coverage ratio. The Section 8 contract expires in August of 2019. The borrower plans to apply for and receive a long-term Section 8 contract extension. And the project has been a Section 8 project since 1985. It serves the disabled and senior populations. We feel very confident that the efforts of the developer to get a new contract will be successful and will be in place after conversion to permanent loan. Until the Section 8 long-term contract is in place, we have required a transition operating reserve of $135,000, which will be held by CalHFA as additional measure. Are there any questions at this point?
I guess on this side.
Thank you. Just a few questions. I'm sorry if some of these are my lack of education here, but I'm very interested in the issue of the housing assistance payment contract. There's a statement that we're in the risk share program, but in the uses side, I didn't see a premium being paid for the risk share program. I'm not sure if those are supposed to be.
The premium for the risk share program is included in the loan rate.
Okay.
So that all runs through our accounting group on our side.
Okay. And then relocation costs, I would need to be convinced that the scope of rehabilitation isn't going to require more relocation than what is anticipated. Just the scope of work seems like it will be very disruptive to the lives of the residents. Can you speak to that?
In most of the cases, except for ADA, the units are going to, the developer has successfully proven that they can come in, change out cabinets, countertops, do interior painting. They have one scope of work to do that day. Then the tenant comes back in at night. If there's additional work to do, they come in the next day, and then the tenant comes back that night. So not to say that everything will be done in one day, but the tenant can come back in the evening and their unit will be back in place. The ADA units will definitely require the tenant to be out.
So it'll be fully usable. They can prepare their evening meal. They can do all the things.
That's right.
Okay.
And the neat thing is that we've been able to prove that out. We've done the Virginia Terrace project, and the relocation budget was minimal because of the way that the contractor schedules construction.
Very good. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson Hall?
Yes, thank you. Great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
I just had a few questions related to, I'm not really familiar with Step Forward Communities. You did mention Triton, and you're right, Triton is actually very well known. I would like for you to just expound a little bit around Step Forward Communities, who is the managing general partner, and what their role will be.
Step Forward Communities has partnered with Triton for, I believe, in the past 4 or 5 projects, and if I'm stating this incorrectly, the developer can come up. They are a service provider and have several years of experience providing services, and now have transitioned into development with Triton Development, and has several projects that they've completed successfully, 2 of which are financing involved.
CalHFA finance?
Yes.
Okay.
Call Bill Rice, who's the head of Triton Community Development.
So,
Hi,
Dwayne, hi, I'm Bill Rice with Triton Community Development. Dwayne Henry is the Executive Director of Step Forward Communities. He was actually at the last meeting for Virginia Terrace. I was here, for Vista Hidden Valley. And given that there were no questions there, I said, here, save the airfare, I'll come up for this one. So my apologies that we sent the wrong person up. But Step Forward is acquired Virginia Terrace, has recently closed on 2 Texas preservation properties, and is scheduled to close on the Vista Hidden Valley transaction, as well as this one. They focus on preservation of at-risk properties, and Dwayne's background, he was an officer in the Air Force, decided he wanted to serve his country in a different capacity, and so transitioned. He was originally a special needs teacher before joining the Air Force, decided to get involved with services and affordable housing. So that's the perspective or the background of Step Forward.
Thank you very much. I'll just say that on page 6 there is a small typo. You note that the rent for a single is $9,000,
Yeah.
but it's corrected on the following page at $900.
I did notice that on the bus this morning, and I thought, wow, that's really high, but thank you for pointing that out.
We know that even for California, that's over the top.
Yeah, we've all read about that.
And then thank you for correction on the $4 million, which you had mentioned. And then my last question was on the purchase and sale agreement, which expires 12/21. And also has the wrong owner. Can you just list it under, under the title, there's a different owner? Can you just expound on that a little bit?
Sure. The purchase contract, it's a minor difference between what the purchase contract says is the owner and what's actually on title. The one thing that was missing in the purchase contract was that it said a limited partnership, and in the actual name of the owner states limited partnership spelled out. So that was the difference.
Okay.
We
So
wanted to
very
make
minor.
sure that everything was absolutely correct. So
Thank you.
And we are working on an amendment to the purchase and sale just to clean that up for CalHFA's benefit and extend to 12/31 of this year, or to the end of the year. So we should have that later this week.
Well, I consider that a good catch for the staff. So thank you for sharing that with us. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't anything more serious than that.
for certain, and we have a very good legal staff that pick that up.
Thank you.
Other questions, Mr. Metcalf?
Yes, thank you. Looks like a great project and a very thorough diligence. Two questions. One is, does the project reflect a federal financing bank transaction? I missed that. I wasn't quite sure if it was. It does.
It does, and on the first page, it lays it out. During the rehab period, we will be using our CalHFA earned surplus as a source, and then at conversion, we transition to the FFB program.
Perfect, good. That's what I thought you were doing, to make sure. And then second question is just conceptual. I'm not suggesting that it's not correct, but you have a transition operating reserve that you said you would unwind once the owner gets in place a new Section 8 contract. But you also have some notes in here acknowledging that we don't have certainty on how long that contract would be. So if it were only a short-term contract, a 1 or a 5-year, would that then change the, would you then keep the reserve in place, or?
If it were a 5-year only, I would keep it in place until we have a longer term. I anticipate the minimum term would be 15 years in terms of a long contract.
So if it were more than 15 years, then the reserve would burn off, you'd release it back to the borrower?
Yes.
Okay.
We're requesting a 20-year contract, which HUD is statutorily required to do unless something changes, which we don't see happening in the short term. The reason why we didn't just set it for a 20-year is sometimes those contracts come back 19 years and 11 months. So we, or some variation just short of the 20. So we're in agreement with CalHFA. We're asking for the maximum contract that we can get, but it needs to be greater than 15 years. But we're requesting a 20-year contract.
Very good, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Rice.
Can I just confirm with you, sir, is there anybody in your organization with an economic interest by the name of William Lyons Jr. or William Lyons Sr.?
No, there isn't.
Any other questions? I have a question, which is, you said one of your conditions is the removal of the existing HUD use agreement and regulatory agreement from title. Could you explain why you're requiring that?
The existing financing is HUD financing with the current owner, and the use agreement has already expired. So we're asking for the recorded documents from the transaction, from the previous financing transaction, to be removed from title. Somewhat of a belt and suspenders approach, but we wanted to make sure that the use agreement was removed from title.
And what was the previous financing, the HUD financing?
Bill, could you answer that, please?
It was originally, it's been refinanced with HUD 2 times recently, but prior to that, I think it was originally, it was a HUD, it was done with a HUD new construction program to do effectively a senior transaction. So I don't remember if it was a 221D4 or if it was a 236. I don't believe it had a 236 component to it, but that mortgage it expired quite some time ago. It ran its 40 years. So those restrictions should have been removed when HUD refinanced it, but it didn't. CalHFA is cleaning up the title to reflect the current status of the transaction and to remove the old regulatory agreement that went with the original.
Okay,
the original
but
HUD loan.
it has expired.
It has expired, yes.
Okay.
It ran its 40-year term.
Okay. And my second question is, if you were to obtain a 20-year contract with higher rents, so then there would be substantially more cash flow in the project, is that correct?
That's correct. We're underwriting to existing rent. So once the new contract comes in, it's hard to say it's going to be a certain percentage over current rents, but I would say it would be a minimum of 10% higher than the current rents. So that will improve the cash flow.
But it's 100% Section 8, so all the tenants are still protected.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the project? And the resolution, we have a resolution here, number 1616.
From Tina Johnson Hall, so moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Avila Frias?
Aye.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Ms. Gallagher?
Yes.
Ms. Gunn?
Aye.
Mr. Gunning?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Metcalf,
Yes.
Mr. Prince,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Russell,
Aye.
Ms. Falk.
Yes.
Resolution 1616 is approved.
Thank you.
Thank
If
you.
I might just add one thing of thanks. I know I've got my approval, so I should probably be quiet and leave. But I do want to say that the work that CalHFA does and the loan programs you offer are really helpful to the affordable housing community. And this is a perfect example because this is a property that the owner had nothing but market rate transactions. He owned this and one other HUD transaction, was selling them and would be happy to sell them as market rate and to be done with the affordability. But because of your loan program, which is competitive, it's good loan to value, it allows us to do substantial renovation. But because of the terms of this program, it allowed us to be able to attract the seller to wait the time for an affordable transaction to happen when he could have just easily taken it to market. So the tools that you have and the programs that you use really do make a difference for creating new affordable housing or preserving affordable housing. And so I just wanted to point that out on this transaction and say thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McKilly. We'll move now to item number 8, which is a discussion, recommendation, and possible action regarding the adoption of a resolution authorizing applications to the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee for private activity bond allocations for the agency's homeownership and multifamily programs. Mr. Sue.
Please, on here.
Good morning, Chairwoman. Good morning, members of the board. This should be short and sweet. I'd like to first give you an update on our MCC program. So if you go to page 2 of my slides. So on the top here is the reservations that we've done this year in 2016. So these are average numbers. So on the average, every month we do about 388 MCCs a month. And the total dollar amount that we do every month on the average is about $22 million. So that makes an average MCC in the state of California here about $57,000, which is a sizable amount of money. And then moving on to the lower half of the slide here, this is the remaining allocation that we have for MCC. So you might recall that at the end of last year, we got about a little bit more than $1 billion of volume cap from SITLAC for MCC. The conversion ratio of volume cap to SITLAC, the conversion ratio from volume cap to MCC is 4-to-1. So for every $4 of volume cap we get, it converts into $1 MCC. So that a little bit more than $1 billion of carry forward volume cap we got at the end of last year converted to about $265 million of MCC. We have issued about $120 million MCC till the end of October. And we also have a very active pipeline with a little bit of haircut, about 5%. We have about $55 million that's also spoken for. So all in all, we have about $90 million of MCC dollar amounts left. So, which brings us to Resolution 1617. What we're requesting from the board is the authority to increase the amount that the board authorizes staff to apply to SITLAC by $600 million. A little bit of context. Going back to March, the board has already given staff an authority up to $1 billion to apply to SITLAC for single-family programs. In large part, that's for MCC. So in the early part of October, we did apply to SITLAC for exactly $1 billion for MCC. Soon after we submitted application, SITLAC reached out to us and asked us if we would be interested for potentially another $600 million of MCC when they are done with figuring out their numbers sometime this month. So we are bringing this request to the board to increase our authority to apply for more volume cap for MCC if that is agreeable to the board. So this will be something that the CIDLAC would award to us as part of their carry forward, which is normally done in December. So just a bit of context of how far these dollar amounts will go. So if we get another $1.6 billion, that converts into $400 million MCC with a run rate of about $20 million a month. That will take us out 20 months. So that this will, along with the money that we have now, if we were to get an entire $1.6 billion for MCC, this will run us out until the end of 2018. Which is a good thing, because I think that the program right now is actually quite successful, and some of the dollar amounts for MCC is actually coupled with our single-family first lien program. That connection is not fantastic, but it's about 1 out of 10 MCCs we make actually has a CalHFA first lien loan on it. So the request, again, is to increase the authority granted by the board to staff to apply to CIDLAC for up to $1.6 billion for single-family programs, and all that will be used for MCC.
Thank you. Are there questions? Ms. Gallagher?
I just had a question. Is there any constraint on the time frame? It sounds like there's flexibility on using the allocation. I just wanted to confirm that that's true.
Yeah, so if we convert the dollar into MCC, we have 3 years to use it.
Other questions?
If I do the math, so
Mr. Prince?
yeah, sorry, 600 million becomes 150 million in MCC. You have 90 million carry forwards, that's 240. You're doing 170 million of activity. So I get it that you're doing like 20 months instead of 12, right? Is that the summary of your numbers?
Yeah, we're reserving about 22
Right.
a month.
So I
yeah.
guess, I mean, for my, I appreciate the question about timing, because I would hate for us to be in a spot where all of a sudden there's a deadline and we're the ones who are on the hook for either their production or their timeline. So I'm glad you answered that question. And then I guess my other question is, are we going to be able to increase production so that it's going to be, it feels to me, $70 million extra of allocation. What is that, about 40%? That seems to be a little generous. And does that then put either the state in a bad spot where they are not asking the question of how do they use their bond cap completely? It almost allows us to be hiding their production issues. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That's a lot going on there. I think that
Tim, rude that you asked us.
You might recall about this time last year, we also made another presentation about MCC in which we had requested for a higher authority from the board in order to receive that $1 million carry forward from the board. Our MCC program in 2015 really sort of took off. Prior to 2015, it was coming in these trickles. I think that the range, the average is about 22, but the range is somewhere around, let's say, high teens, and in some months we get sort of like high 20s. I'm not that fearful that receiving additional dollar amounts would would result in the dollar amounts being unspent, because I think that the program is extremely well received. We approved new MCC. We actually have lenders who use MCC exclusively instead of using our first along with MCC. So that's what that tells me, is that the MCC program is streamlined enough that there are people coming to use our program without, let's say, needing to be prompted to use our program in terms of the first. Having said that, it is true that I believe that if we were to receive the money and we were to convert to MCC from the state's allocation of volume cap, that is considered to be used. But I think that we're not, did you use the word hide?
Let me
I might have, sorry, that's probably not a good word to use.
No, it is
Ms.
not a good
Bowman
word.
Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a strategy that we have as the state of California in partnership with our partner, the State Treasurer's Office, to make sure that we are spending all of our volume cap. And knowing that multifamily is our highest priority, we do want to make sure that we have spent all of our volume cap. And so when our partners do ask us to come forward and help partner with them to make sure that we have strategies and management policies in place, that we do get at spending that volume cap, this is one of the mechanisms that we are using. And converting our private activity bond to MCCs helps us to meet those strategies, with the first priority being, though, multifamily.
I would add that if I don't have confidence in taking more dollars for MCC, I wouldn't take it, because taking volume cap from CITLAC does cost a little bit of money. We pay 3.5 basis point for every dollar we take.
So the equivalent would be what happens in communities with home funds, where they get allocated to a partner, and then the dollars aren't spent, and all of a sudden it's the partner, and it's the originating entity that's in trouble. You actually made me feel comfortable about the word hide, because you just said the partner wants us to do it so they can show that they're spending the funds down and they get this additional time limit. I mean, I'm not against it. It still feels like a 45% cushion, feels a little high. And if I was a policymaker on the CIDLAC side of things, I'd be asking the question, how do we get the bond cap out at a, I don't know, getting it out rather than extending it up through 3 years by converting to MCC and all that. But anyways,
And we're having those conversations.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question also? This
Yeah,
is
Mr. Metcalf.
Metcalf. So Tia, just to your point, I mean, we are hearing from CIDLAC historically high 4% bond applications this year. There's some question as to whether that might continue next year or might taper off for a variety of reasons. Is there a scenario in which that demand on the multifamily side stays high into next year, and essentially CIDLAC is burning through all their carry forward? We're getting to a place where multifamily is becoming scarce and competitive, where CalHFA might change its tack then and sort of stop doing the volume of MCC that we are currently doing in order to free up? Is that kind of the policy balance we're trying to strike?
Well, once it's given to us to convert to MCCs, it has to go to MCCs. And that's one of the reasons why we're only taking $600 million as opposed to more, because we want to be able to allow to continue to have those conversations with CIDLAC so that we can prioritize multifamily projects. And I think we have a scheduled meeting with CIDLAC just next week, or is it this week, to continue next week? Early December, to talk about the increasing volume of multifamily projects that we're seeing. And so Mr. Prince is exactly right. We do want to prioritize, but it's a delicate balancing act between how much do you convert to MCCs to make sure that you're using up your money, and how much do you leave set aside for multifamily projects without having to send those back. But that was one of the reasons why I think we may have actually been a little conservative in only taking $600 million, because I think initially they might have wanted us to take more than that. And so we wanted to leave that room to make sure we had some for multifamily projects as those look to be on the rise.
And I would add that the 600 is a not to exceed number. We could well get a lot less than the 600. And I think that the MCC program that we have and the run rate that we have, to answer your question, President, that I think we're offering a better visibility for the use of the dollars versus them allowing, let's say, someone to park multifamily carry forward dollar amounts, which they did quite a bit of, I think, in some of the leaner years. But seeing the pace that we have and the run rate we have, I think we give them the assurance that these dollars will be used. And again, I wouldn't take it if we think that we won't be able to use it.
Are there any other questions?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Prince.
You know, it's really just about giving Tim a hard time, right?
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Call roll, please.
Ms. Zabala Frias?
Aye.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Ms. Gallagher?
Yes.
Ms. Gunn?
Yes.
Mr. Gunning?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Metcalf?
Yes.
Mr. Prince?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Ms. Falk?
Yes.
Resolution 1617 is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sue. So item number 9 are various reports that the board has received. We only talk about them if board members have any questions. So are there any questions on any of the items in section 9? Okay. Hearing none, are there any other board matters? Mr. Prince?
I hate to bring this up because it might be more work for the rest of you all, but is it time for the CEO evaluation or executive director evaluation? Is the committee working on that? Not more work for you. I was hoping it's for.
We'll see what you did.
We actually were considering bringing to the evaluation committee general salary increases, and we are working on that internally. And one of the things that has come up is over the last several years, there's not been a cost of salary increase or a general salary increase for exempt staff. We're looking at the last salary survey. The last salary survey was very, very expensive. It cost almost $100,000. So we've contacted that company, and they're looking to update the salary survey or validate its existency as opposed to a full-fledged salary survey. And so that's one of the things that we will be bringing to the evaluation committee. Separate and apart, my evaluation, I was really more focused on the entire exempt staff and bringing that to the evaluation committee. And so we're doing our due diligence to bring that discussion to the evaluation committee on a general salary increase for exempt staff in January or so.
But it hasn't been a year since we've done your evaluation, so I think that it is appropriate for us to be.
Well, since we're going to be meeting in January, we could discuss that as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Prince.
Are there any other issues? I believe we're supposed to ask if there's anybody from the public that wants to speak, even though it's not technically on the agenda. Okay, hearing none. Our next meetings, I believe a calendar's been sent out to everybody, and when will that be finalized, Ms. Hudson? Okay. So watch your emails. It's coming soon for the dates for 2017. Okay, so I guess we will not reconvene until next year. So, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.